Sorry guys, I was trying so hard to get that video under 15 minutes, but I'm limited to 15-minute segments, so this one's going to be much shorter. We're just going to wrap up this second half of this presentation. Just reviewing again, what is effective management of reserve? Basically, what's some very important things, some take-home things is monitoring. So once you have it all set up, once you find stakeholders are the people that are going to be involved with this reserve, all the way from government to employees, perhaps even to the people who are going to come and visit the reserve or possibly even do research. So stakeholders are going to find out who they are, get their cooperation, figure out how to staff and fund it. Figure out how, if you don't have enough money, how you're going to get alternative incomes to be able to run this. Planning is super important. Mapping out the area, restoring the resources, creating short-term and long-term goals, identify areas that are really valuable, specific species that need to be protected with law enforcement. And once you have all of this in place, you have to finish it with monitoring. You can't have a reserve unless you know it's effective. So monitoring the progress, monitoring the environmental changes. This is effective management of a reserve. Now, in some cases, we have to effectively manage organisms that are endangered. Sometimes we can just help them in the actual conserved area. So we can have in situ conservation where the area has been conserved, and so therefore we're helping the endangered species. This is really helpful because the organisms can just stay sort of stress-free. They can keep their normal behavior. The structure of the food web can stay intact. A lot of times, pulling the organisms out and trying to have them breed in human care just doesn't work for some species. They're just too sensitive. And then the habitat remains available to other endangered species. Some of these species could be keystone species where we're protecting the one and therefore protect a whole bunch of them. I'm going to give you some examples. So in the Leighton Moss Reserve in the UK, they have a coastal marsh that they are maintaining for breeding ground for specific organisms. And they have also been replanting different endangered species and removing invasive species. So all of this is happening in the field. Now, in some cases, it's just not possible to keep these organisms, these endangered species, in the field. And we have to actually go out, capture them, and pull them away from their natural habitat. And this is ex situ. So this happens if their habitat is lost, if the animal is too threatened where it is, perhaps from different poaching, human impacts. It could be that the organism is just so rare that it would be impossible for them to come in contact with each other to breed. And then we could breed them to help maintain wild populations. And captive breeding, what's great is breeding these organisms in human care, we can quickly increase their numbers for some species and try to get their numbers back out in the wild again. Some examples: captive breeding of pandas and peregrine falcons. We lost many peregrine falcons because of DDT. And the botanical gardens in London and seed banks. All of these are examples of ex situ conservation. I want to leave you with a really great example. You always want to have examples in your back pocket. You never know what types of questions you're going to be asked, and providing an example can really boost your score. This is a specific case study of successful captive breeding and reintroduction of an invasive species, specifically this cute little nugget, the red wolf. Okay, so they were threatened in the 1900s because of hunting and predator control. These guys were deemed pests. So they were actively hunted, and much of their habitat was either altered or destroyed. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service started a captive breeding program after basically 1967. They were essentially declared extinct. They were endangered, and they were declared extinct in 1980. So they were endangered in 67. 1980, they were extinct in the wild. So they took a dramatic hit to their population. So they started a captive breeding program to try to save the species, and they collected them, bred them in human care, and reintroduced the offspring. As of 2010, the reintroduction of these red wolves was around 130. So their population just continues to increase, and this is an example of a successful captive breeding and reintroduction of an endangered species. Okay, we're done with this section of the notes. What I want you to do is go online and do your homework for tonight. That's going to be to read chapter C.4 and answer the questions. Make sure you get the videos and the homework done. You have plenty of time to knock it out, so don't waste time. Miss you guys. Hope you're doing good, or well, I should speak appropriately, and I will see you tomorrow.